Okay.
All right. Okay. Oh, I got a notification. That's okay. So, and also before I start talking about the stress patterns in the dialect, I want to note that the words I use as examples throughout this presentation may not be all what people would typically consider to be historically local Faifi Arabic words. Some of the words are like that, but the majority are words that are used nowadays by the speakers of the dialect and have been phonologized and morphologized. Like they carry the phonology and morphology of the dialect. And another point about the data is that all words that I have here are marked for stress in isolation. So I didn't really look at words in a phrasal context or in a sentence. Okay, so regarding word stress in the dialect, unlike many Arabic dialects that I'm familiar with, in most Faifi Arabic words, stress falls on the first syllable from the left edge of the word, and in many cases, irrespective of the weight of the initial syllable or any following syllable in the word, as shown in the representative sample in 1. So the words are stressed as you'd say ala, nadur, sharabt, silihu, alahu, yahishun, and waragati, with all stress on the first syllable. But this initial stress, which I call the default stress in the dialect, does not apply in specific cases in the dialect. And these cases are what I focus on in this presentation. So I start with disyllabic words, trisyllabic words, until I get to words with 5 or more syllables. Okay, so in a disyllabic word, stress typically falls on the first syllable from the left edge of the word. That's the first syllable, since you have 2 syllables, except in 4 cases. And these are the cases that I found looking at the data. The first case is when the first syllable of the disyllabic word is a CVC syllable that specifically has a glottal stop onset. In this case, stress falls on the second syllable if it's heavy. And you can see these in the example. And I assume that the final consonant in these examples is extrametrical, so it doesn't really play a role in the weight of the final syllable, the second syllable. So in 2, the words on the left are typically pronounced as ismain, ithnain, with stress on the second syllable. And these words can be compared to the words that have other initial CVC syllables. So words like filmain and tiflain, where the initial syllable in these 2 words is the stressed syllable. And the first word, for example, filmain, that has stress on the first syllable, also shows that even a word that is clearly borrowed, doesn't come from Arabic, shows in the initial stress pattern of the dialect. The second case is when the disyllabic word begins with a CV syllable that also has a glottal stop onset. So in number 3, the word in the left column, abait and ahish, stress the second syllable compared to a word like ramait and legit, where stress is placed on the first syllable. The third case is when the definite almorph im is the first. So the dialect has 2 definite morphemes, the meme and the lam. So when you have the definite almorph im, this is the one that has the epenthetic vowel in it. So you can see in the example in 4, the second syllable is stressed in all of these words. But someone could argue that, okay, the second syllable is heavy, so it's expected that it would attract stress. But then when you look at a word like ma in 4D, then it becomes clear that the definite article resists stress in these words. The last case where stress does not fall on the first syllable in a disyllabic word is when the word begins with the other definite article in the dialect, the L definite article, the lateral. And in these words, stress also avoids the first syllable. So the word M5 is pronounced as a sept, with stress on the second syllable. But the thing about the L definite article is that it's not really the commonly used definite article in the dialect. So it's really rare. You can't find a lot of words that have this type of definite article in the dialect. Okay, so that was the general pattern for words with 2 syllables. So stress typically falls on the first syllable, except in the cases that I just talked about. In trisyllabic words, stress falls on the first syllable from the left edge of the word, except in 6 cases, 4 of which overlap with the 4 cases I just talked about for disyllabic words. The first case here is very similar to what I just described in disyllabic words. When the first syllable is the indefinite article, the first heavy syllable from the left edge of the word is stressed. So the sort of stress assignment looks for the first heavy syllable from the left edge of the word and assigns stress to that syllable. And this, of course, excludes the definite article itself. because that's the point, is that definite article itself cannot be stressed. An example of this is the word maktab. So you'd say maktab and Riyadh. So the first heavy syllable from the left edge of the word is stressed. Now, if the second and third syllables are either both heavy or both light, then stress falls on the second syllable, as in the word mara. So you'd say mara. Here you have the second and third syllables being light. So the second syllable is stressed. Or you would say maktub. You would have two heavy syllables, but stress would fall on the second syllable in this case. The second case is when the word begins with one of the L-definite L-morphs, in which case the second syllable is stressed regardless of its weight or the weight of the first or third syllables, as in the words al-ahad, or you could say al-ahad if you keep the glottal stop onset, or you could say also a-thin, with stress on the second syllable in this case. Then compare these words to the words in the middle column with an initial syllable that is not the definite article, and the first syllable is stressed. Even though the syllable structure in these words is not quite identical, but it's close enough to trigger an effect if the weight of the syllable would have affected anything in these words. So the words in the middle column are pronounced as razi'an, so we say razi'an with stress on the first syllable, and you could say athatha with stress on the first syllable as well. And some native speakers said that the word, I just have to point this out, that the word thanu and similar words that also have the definite article that has the geminate coda can also optionally stress the first syllable. So you could say athanu or you could say athanu with these words, and this could be a geminate effect. Anyway, which is there are many examples in the dialect that also show this this effect. Okay, the third case is when the word begins with a CV syllable that has a glottal stop onset and a long vowel, and in this case, stress falls on the second syllable, as in the words in 10. So we say ataytum, arani, etc., and any word that has this shape would stress the second syllable. These two words can be compared to the words in the right column. So you'd say, excuse me, you say darastum with stress on the first syllable, even though the second syllable is heavy, and you would say karasim with stress on the first syllable, even though the second syllable is open with a long vowel, and you would expect it to attract stress. Okay. The fourth case is when the word begins with CV syllables or a CV syllable that has any consonant. At this point, doesn't have to be, of course, excluding the glottal stop onsets in this case, followed by the low vowel and has a second super heavy syllables. In this case, the stress falls on the super heavy syllables. So if you look at the words that I have in 11, so you say masajdin and hafaydun. So stress here would be on the second syllable. And these two words can also be compared to words that only differ in the weight of the second syllable. So we say darastum and we say katabtum, both have stress on the first syllable in the word. The fifth case is when the word begins with a CVC syllable that has a glottal stop onset. In this case, stress would fall on the second syllable regardless of its weight, as in the words that I have here. So you could say isma'u, isma'an, and a'laman. So stress in all of these words would be on the second syllable. It doesn't matter how heavy the second syllable is or how light. And these words can also be compared to the words in the right column with the main difference between the two groups here is the presence of the initial glottal stop onset in these words on the left. But the words on the right stress the initial syllable. The last case is where words have an initial syllable that is a CVG syllable. So the first leg of a geminate is the coda consonant. So in 13, the leftmost column shows words that begin with this type of syllable and have a second heavy or super heavy syllable, but the heavy syllable in this case has to be specifically CVV, not CVC. And all of these words, stress falls on the second heavy or super heavy syllable. So you say a yaman, a yamham, or a siatam, all right? And these words can be compared to the words in the middle column, which have the same syllabic structure, but stress falls on the first syllable, or optionally, the second syllable. But this optionality was not reported for the words on the left. And when I say optional, and I say it a lot in the upcoming slides, that means that either the speakers said, yeah, it's okay to stress this syllable or this syllable, and the word would sound Faifi, or the speakers had a problem actually, like the two syllables sounded equally stressed. And then the two words under the table show that non-final CVC syllables do not have the same effect of CVV syllables. So syllables open with long vowels. So these were all the cases I found where trisyllabic words stress a non-initial syllable. In quadrisyllabic words, words with four syllable, generally stress falls on the first syllable except in 6 cases, which are very similar to those that I just explained for trisyllabic words, but with some slight differences. But compared to trisyllabic words, quadrisyllabic words generally have more optionality. Like they show a lot of this optionality where speakers are not sure about which syllable is stressed, or they say you could stress this syllable or this syllable and the word would sound okay. So the first case where stress in these words can fall on a syllable other than the first syllable is when the word begins with a CVG syllable that is followed by a heavy syllable. And these words, stress typically falls on the first syllable, but optionally it can also fall on the second syllable, regardless of the weight of the third or fourth syllables. And the fourth syllable does not get stressed in these words anyway. So in 14, for example, the word for we stretch them has stress on the first syllable. So you can say mattanahum, or can optionally stress the second syllable. So you can say mattanahum, but not on the third syllable. The second case in number 2 on the slide is when the word begins with the definite L-morph in. And in this case, stress falls on the first heavy syllable, similar to trisyllabic words from the left edge of the word. So in 15, you would say imtihan with stress on the second heavy syllable. Now, if the second syllable is light, what happens again is the word searches for the first heavy syllable from the left edge of the word. So you just stress the third syllable if it's heavy in this case. But stress again wouldn't go beyond the third syllable. You would stress the third syllable. So the example I have here is the word muwattaf. So the stress would be on the third syllable. The third case is when the word begins with a CVC syllable that has a glottal stop onset and a geminate coda. Whether this syllable is the definite article or not, it doesn't matter. So for quadrisyllabic words, words with the definite article, the CVG definite article or the CVC definite article act the same way in the dialect. So in 16, for example, the word in A is pronounced as a thulatha with stress on the second syllable, and in 16b the word is pronounced as as-salnahum with stress on the second syllable. Although a couple of consultants did say that the initial syllable could be stressed here, which again could be a geminate effect that we saw with trisyllabic words earlier. The fourth case is when the word begins with glottal stop followed by the low vowel, so a CV syllable, that is followed by a heavy syllable, as in the word I have here is ata'nahum. This word can be compared to the word talabnahum, where the first syllable is also CB, but the onset consonant is different, and then you get the stress on the first syllable in this case. And then the fifth case, excuse me, is when the word begins with a CV syllable that has the low vowel followed by a heavy or super heavy syllable. The heavy syllable has to be, again, CVV, not CVC. And you see this a lot in the dialect where CVC syllables do not attract stress, but CVV syllables attract stress, which could be, indicate something about what's heavy and what's not in the dialect, what's considered heavy. And these are non-final syllables. A final CVC syllable would be considered light if the final consonant is extrametrical. In this case, stress falls on the second syllable, as in the word in 18. So we'd say mashayikhm and katabt laha with stress on the second syllable. And these words can be compared to tabakhnahum, where the second syllable is CVC, not CVV. And so stress falls on the initial syllable in this word. The last case is when the word begins with a CVC syllable, where the first consonant is the glottal stop and the fourth syllable is not heavy. Even though the fourth syllable does not really attract stress, it affects probably the weight of the foot, so it attracts stress to that syllable, to that foot, to the leftmost syllable in that foot. As you see in this example here. So you'd say, if you contrast the examples here, the ones with the dual marker and the ones without the dual marker. So you'd say اختباراً with stress on the second CV syllable, but you would say اختبارين, so stress would be on the third syllable with the long vowel, and that could be because even though in the first example, the word for اختباراً, for a single, just one test, the third syllable is still there with a CVV, with a long vowel in the syllable. But then as soon as you add the dual marker, stress shifts to that syllable. Okay, so these were the cases where stress does not fall on the first syllable in words with 4 syllables. In pentasyllabic words, or words with 5 syllables and longer words, in this case, stress falls on the first syllable from the left edge of the word, except in the 6 cases, the similar 6 cases that I just talked about. The first case is when the word begins with an initial CVG syllable that is followed by either a heavy or super heavy syllable. And in this case, stress can fall on either the first CVG syllable, or it can fall on the second syllable if it has a long vowel nucleus, or it can also fall on the third syllable if it has a long vowel nucleus. So it could be on any of the first 3 syllables in this case, if they have a long vowel, if each of the syllables, except the first one, has a long vowel. So the word in 20A can be pronounced with stress on any of the first 3 syllables. So you could pronounce it as سياراتن, سياراتن, or سياراتن, with stress on any of these 3 syllables. But the word in 20B, and this is where it gets interesting for words of length, the word in 20B can be pronounced as مشايخن, with stress on the first syllable, or it can be pronounced as مشيناهن, with stress on the third syllable, but not with stress on the second syllable. That was not deemed a Faifi pronunciation by the speakers. So that was the first case. The second case in number 2 is when a word begins with the definite article or the allomorph im, the one with the epenthetic vowel. In this case, stress seems to consistently fall on the first heavy non-initial syllable from the left edge of the word. So an example of this is the word mimtihanat and mutarjimin. So you could hear stress clearly on either the first heavy syllable, so mimtihanat, or you say mutarjimin, with stress on the first heavy syllable. The third case, excuse me, is when the word begins with a CVG syllable, where the onset is a glottal stop. And in these words, stress falls on the second heavy syllable or super heavy syllable. An example of this is the word astilnahin and ashatlahin. So you'd have stress on the first heavy syllable or super heavy syllable. And in both words, consultants say that the first syllable could also be stressed, which again could be a geminate effect. The fourth case is when the word begins with a CV syllable that has a glottal stop onset and a low vowel, in which case the second syllable is stressed, as in the word ata'nahinna and araynahinna. So stress would be on the second syllable. The fifth case is when a word begins with a CV syllable that has the low back vowel. Again, we've seen this with quadrisyllabic words and trisyllabic words. And these words, stress can optionally fall, and this is where you get optionality in more cases with longer words than with trisyllabic words. Stress can optionally fall on the second syllable if it's super heavy, as in nashat bihinna, or you could say nashat bihinna. So if the second syllable is light, stress defaults to the initial syllable. So if you have the first, the second syllable is what determines where stress falls in these. If it doesn't have a long vowel, so you'd say semakatin with stress on the first syllable. The last case is when a word begins with a CVC syllable that has a glottal stop onset, and in this case, stress can fall on either the second syllable or third syllable, depending on the shape of the third syllable. So if the third syllable is open with a long vowel and the second syllable is heavy, then stress falls on either the second syllable or the third syllable. An example of this is the word that you can see here, istiqbalatin, which can also be stressed as istiqbalatin with stress on the second or the third syllables. If the third syllable is not open with a long vowel, the stress always falls on the second CVC syllable. So there's no optionality in this word. So an example of this is استعملنا. So this is for the stress patterns. Here I have just some general observations based on the data and patterns that I just talked about. So the first thing, and one of the most obvious, is that the definite allomorphs that have an epenthetic vowel deter stress from the first syllable. So you don't want to stress the definite article if it has an epenthetic vowel. I don't know if I showed examples here, but the dialect has two definite allomorphs, especially with the im. You can have the one without epenthesis and you can have one with the epenthesis. The one without epenthesis always has stress on the first syllable. And that's not because the word, the dialect likes to stress onset clusters, because when you have the bare nasal definite article, you would have a cluster, and it's not because the dialect likes to stress onset cluster, but that's because of the absence of the definite article that has the epenthetic vowel. So generally, the dialect does not like to stress these syllables, and unstressable morphemes have been reported in some Arabic dialects, such as Karian and Sanani. If you look at Watson 2002 sheet, she talked a lot about these some unstressable morphemes. So it's possible that Faifi Arabic has a similar case here. And a somewhat related observation, this is number 2, is the issue of glottal stops when they occur in the beginning of the word. And as I showed in most, not all, but most of the data, when a word begins with a glottal stop, a syllable other than the initial syllable gets stressed. So the examples in 28 here, just a few words, show a few words from some of the data sets that I showed you earlier. And the glottal stop can be either epenthetic, as in most of these words, or part of the root. It can be part of the root. So it can be a lexical glottal stop, as in the word athathan. So you would say athathan, you wouldn't say athathan. So the effect is the same here. So the glottal stop can be epenthetic, or it can be part of the root. The third observation is that stress can optionally move from one syllable to another, especially in long words with heavy or super heavy syllables. So in 29, stress can fall on any of the first 3 syllables. So it can be on the first syllable, the second syllable, or the third syllable. But in 30, stress can be either on the first or the third syllables, but not the second syllable. And these examples actually in 30 show the case I was talking about, where CVV syllables attract stress more than a medial CVC syllable. And then in 31, stress can fall on either the second syllable or the third syllable. But these different stress syllables point to the, that's the point I'm trying to make here, they point to the possibility that the dialect may have secondary stress, meaning that the optionality you see here is really a matter of primary stress versus secondary stress. And secondary stress has also been reported in a dialect that's not that far away from Faifi Arabic and Sanani Arabic, as discussed in Watson 2002. So secondary stress might actually exist in Faifi Arabic as well. But what is unusual, what's really unusual, and that's say the take-home point here, is that the dialect has a general preference to stress word initial syllables, sometimes regardless of the weight of the following syllable. And that's it. This is obviously still a work in progress, but thank you for listening.
Yeah, thank you, Abdullah. It was very interesting to listen to your presentation. And I was wondering whether anyone has any question for Abdullah.
I do.
Please go ahead.
Yeah, that was fascinating, Abdullah. This left hand, the predilection of stress in the left hand, the left hand part of the word, and also the behaviour of CV geminate syllables, which we found in, there have been a few dialects like this since I wrote about Sanani, yeah, and Sami and Naim also has written about how Sanani CV geminate syllables work. There are a couple of things I wondered, whether the position in the utterance makes a difference, with these words which have optional stress? And how much work has been done on stress in surrounding language varieties?
I'm sorry, what was the second question?
Oh, the second one was what work has been done on word stress in surrounding language varieties?
Oh, so for the first question, well, I'll start with the second one. There hasn't been a lot of in Yemen, for example, you've done some work on stress in Yemeni dialects, but in Saudi, on the Saudi part, I think the dialect that has the closest stress patterns is a dialect spoken in Balahmar. It was researched by a colleague of mine actually at Indiana University, Musa Al-Ahmadi. That has very similar patterns. It's not quite the same, but it has similar patterns to Faifi Arabic. Right. And I'm sorry, what was the first question again?
Whether position in utterance makes any difference if something, if a word comes at the beginning of the utterance or at the end.
Right. So that's one of the things I didn't do, is look at those things. All I did was these words were all marked for stress in isolation. So it's just the word on its own. Yeah. But that's something that I should look at because that would be I don't personally think, just based on my personal intuition, I don't think there is a difference unless the syllabification, of course, changes when you start you put that word next to another word that ends in a vowel or a consonant. And,
but anyway, I think it's absolutely fantastic. Very interesting data.
Thank you. But then I think I saw a question in the
yes, there is a question from Adam. He's asking whether you can briefly explain what your transcriptions S with the line and je, I guess, represent.
Oh yes, so these are the sia is the sia, that's the S with the thing on it, is basically the Faifi pronunciation of the k, unless the word has a sibilant in it, then it's pronounced as a k. So you would say siana instead of kana, it was. And the zia, the z with the marker on it, is the pronunciation of j. So you say, what's an example? Diamalan for a jamal. So you would say jamal. You say ziamalan. So that would be the. But that's also variant. And as I mentioned in the beginning, there are 4 sub-varieties, and apparently based on some work that I did earlier, the speakers differ in how they use it. Yeah, some speakers use zia for all occurrences of ja, even if the word has a z in it, or some speakers would say sia even if the word has sa in it. Some speakers would use ka for sia if there is a sa in the word. So that's just I wanted to distinguish that from sa and za. So that's the transcription.
Oh, great. And there's also a second part to the question. Do you have any thoughts on how the dative marker L affects tracts?
Oh, is there a specific example that I can go back to see? I'll have to see the word. Can I share? I'll share the screen again if
yeah, sure.
There's there's a specific example that I'm not sure exactly. Is there a specific Adam? Is there a specific example that
Yeah, Adam, if you want, you can.
Okay.
You could ask. Okay, he answered the chat.
I'm not. Yeah, I'm not sure.
Okay, so if you don't have any example out like in your head or something.
Yeah. What was the there was the oh, in 12 and 13. Okay, let me share the screen again. 12 and 13. So the examples in 12 and 13. Here it should be epenthetic in these cases, just because the vowel is epenthetic.
But it isn't epenthetic in the ones in the CF ones, is it? Where it is stressed.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, Mark replied, so you think the underlying form doesn't have a glottal stop? I see.
That's right, yeah.
Great.
Is that the case for 13C?
Although actually
also?
There isn't any difference really in I don't know how to pronounce this, Ajartim and
Edzartim. Yeah.
I can't pronounce it, Asaltim.
Right. And so the point here is that it doesn't matter whether the glottal stop is epenthetic or not.
Yeah.
The point here is the stress is attracted to the second syllable if the second syllable is heavy with is either super heavy, as in this example here, so say yamhim, or is heavy, but it has a CVV syllable, not CVC. So here the example in this case, which could be I think is the so these are the exceptions where stress does not happen on the first syllable. And I feel like I made that clear in the beginning, but I should have repeated that. Stress typically falls on the first syllable. And what I talked about here are the cases where it doesn't fall on the first syllable. And sometimes I just show examples for comparison that show where the cases where stress falls on the first syllable. That the examples I show here are the exceptions. And in this case, for example, the stress would fall on the first syllable because the glottal stop is not there. So that's the also. But all of these examples together can be compared to these two words here.
Oh yeah. I think it's very clear now. Great. Does anyone else has any question maybe, or should we move on to the next speaker? Okay, so I don't see any raised hand or anything. So I think we can thank again Abdullah for his presentation. And now it's the turn of Dr. Janet Watson, which you all already know. She is going to talk about function words in Razihit. Floor yours. I think you're muted, Janet.
Right, unmuted now?
Yeah, great.
Great. Okay, yeah, tell me if my internet decides not to be very good. So I'm going to just take a few things from this paper that I gave in Istanbul in 2005, because that has the data that we wanted relating to function words. And if anyone wants a copy of this handout, then I can send it to them. So we're going to skip over this assimilation. So it's some quite interesting assimilation that goes on with coronals. And if I just go through those fairly slowly, then you can see them. Interesting syllable structure compared to other Yemeni dialects around this Jabal Razih. And it has word medial super heavy syllables, as we saw for Faifi. Right. And then we've got this syncope of high vowels, which doesn't happen in a lot of Yemeni dialects. So the first thing I wanted to look at was the pronouns. And you have these really interesting pronouns, particularly for the second person. You've got Annie for the first person, but then you've got ak and ach for the independent pronouns for the second person singular. Oh, and here that's okay, and how that's okay. And then you've got akkum and akkun for the second person plural, and him and hin, so they're okay. This gemination of the care may be due to N assimilation, which is at the top of the handout. If you have a look at it later, I can also send a reference to the paper that we wrote as a result of this, the article that we wrote as a result of this paper. Then for the third feminine singular of the perfect verb, you've got a. So you've got Gushallah, Te'ba, Nama, Dawara. But on suffixation, this morpheme always takes the alomorph geminate T, which is shared with some of the other some other Yemeni varieties, and geminate T for the third feminine singular morpheme on suffixation is also found in dialects such as Tunisian, so elsewhere, not just in the region. The demonstrative pronouns are particularly interesting. I now realise that it's going to be difficult to show these all in one go. But basically what you've got is, you've got masculine singular, feminine singular, plural, and then male human plural pronouns. So what's interesting about this in terms of animacy is that there's a distinction between plural and male human plural, and this is something that we found in Rijal Alma as well, where you get one particular demonstrative for inanimate plural and another for human plural. So on the top line we've got so this relates to the gender and number of the thing that we're talking about. But what's interesting is what we've got down this line relates to the addressee. So we can be talking about the same masculine singular thing, but if I were to be speaking to Fabio, then I would say Tihik. If I was talking to Miranda, I would say Tihik. Sorry, no, if I was talking to Miranda, I would say Tihik. So we've got this, and it's something that this the gender of the addressee coming up is found in the Quran, so it's not totally unknown for Arabic. So then, like if we have if we're talking about a masculine thing and I'm addressing a group of you, the whole of you, I would say Diherkum. A group of women, if I was addressing a group of women, I would say Tiherkum. Tiherkun. Oh, sorry, Diherkun. I told you I haven't looked at this data for a while. So Diherkum for a masculine singular object to a group of males, Diherkun to a group of females. We're talking about the same object. The feminine has T at the beginning, which isn't anything strange. The masculine has the, and the plural has L. Then so we've got, so those are the, so we've got, yeah, so we've got proximal, distal. That's okay, we'd expect that. What's interesting is the addressee change. Then we've got absent or past distal, so very distal. So we'd have vek for this same object, which we were talking about in the past, or belongs to the past or is not in our presence. With the addressee being male, I would say thek. The addressee being female, I would say thech. The addressee being all of you, therekum, a group of women, therekun. And again, we've got the T prefix and the L prefix for the T prefix for the feminine and the L prefix for the masculine. And this is exceptionally complicated. So I would be interested to know, I've heard a bit about the Faifi demonstrative, but I would be really interested to know whether you get things like this in Faifi. We also have, I'll just have a look at a couple of other things. So there's some examples in the handout, which I'll send around later. The demonstrative pronoun has a presentative function if you add al. Jay ذاك المطر, ذاك اليوم, that same day. ذاك اليوم turns up a lot, and it's not the definite article. The definite article is similar to Faifi in its gemination of the initial consonant, but it doesn't have the im variant. So the presentative is used in the sense of that specific something, or or the same. So in that same year, Butekas Sena. And that you can compare that to Busanetik on that very day. So we've got, so if we look at this example 7.8, Fernesa Odin Direch, Yom Wilidik Sukari, Vekalyo. So we've got Yom Wilidik, when I gave birth, and then Vekalyo, on that very day. And then these examples further down got the sense of so many. Right, in terms of the lexis, there's some interesting prepositions. So we've got sa or si in the sense of to or until, and you find this in Sabaic in ancient South Arabian. Athar is after, and naha is at or with. The others are less interesting, except the L for the introduction of an indirect object. In terms of adverbs, we have hish, up, tell, down, fal, zali, or hal, there. Hini, hiniya, that's okay for here and where. Minen, from where. See where, that's obviously from a combination of see and an or when. Time, yom is used as a subordinator when. Salhatta, a coordinator, and khati marra sometimes. The numerals, you've got fatta for the feminine. Which results from assimilation of n. And then some particles which are interesting. Irja has resulted from semantic bleaching of irja, return, it has the sense of then, and ken, was, which takes pronoun suffixes for agreement. And then we've got jo, joni imed arrah, artah, athar safar, usually. Whoops, sorry. Minan kan jo tariq, from where the path would the path have been. And then you've got gad, which loses its da in front of pronouns. So there are all sorts of things that are incredibly interesting about Razihit, and I really do hope that someone writes a grammar of this language variety while it's still being spoken, as it was when we did this, when Sheila and Bonnie did this field work, and the speaker who came over was still speaking it, who I interviewed. Yeah, so thank you very much. I'll stop share. I can go back on to share if we need it.
Yeah, thanks, Janet. Yeah, it was very interesting, especially that last particle, Joe, was interesting. Does anyone have any question?
Any questions, or does anyone know of other language varieties where you've got such a complex interaction of addressee and object in the demonstratives?
Can I ask?
Hello.
Oh, sorry. Go on.
Yeah, go ahead.
السلام عليكم.
عليكم السلام. كيف انت
هلا.
يا أميرة؟ كيف حالك؟
Hello, alhamdulillah. How are you? I'm sorry, I just get in. I'm sorry. كان عندي محاضرة دراسات عليا, so I missed many of what you have just talked about. But I have something about the تياك. I think I saw something تياك or تيك لأسماء الإشارة.
ممكن أشارك الشاشة مرة ثانية. شفت ذا الحين؟
Yes, yeah, هذه distal yeah, distal addressee ضحيك وتحيك with the ha, because we have something similar في لهجة in the southern اللي هو
العربية. بعض المحاضرين ما يتكلمون إنجليزي.
طيب, لأن عندنا اللي هي أسماء الإشارة. أيوة, اللي هو تياك وتيك ويا ودوليك ذياك. أوكي, ذياك ممكن أنها تكون متشابهة مع الفصحى اللي هو بدلا عن ذاك ذلك. في لهجات الجنوب في عندهم تياك وتوليك وتوك. في كأن فيه تشابه. لاحظي هنا في ذاك وتاك وإليه.
لكن في اختلاف إذا تكلمتي مع مرة أو مع رجل.
أيوة,
يعني
أيوة.
تقولوا إذا كان نفس الشيء, مثلا مانيش داري
مثلا مجموعة
مثلا
أشياء جامدة مذكرة. ممكن أقول
جامد مذكر.
ممكن أقول ذولاك, لكن مؤنث أقول تولاك ولا توليك. توليك أنا أعتقد إنها something in the middle, إنها ما هي قريبة مرة ولا هي بعيدة. مثلا أقول شوفيها توليك أو ذوليك, لكن إنها الآن أصبحت قليلة الاستخدام, نادرا ما نسمعها. حتى الكبار تركوها. لكن أنا أذكر أن لما اشتغلت عليها وجدتها ودونتها وثقتها, هي موجودة. لو أرجع لها بتذكرها. الآن ما تستخدم. الآن فعلا اختصرت, أصبحت هذاك وذولاك بالهاء أو من غيرها, هذاك أو ذاك. ذولاك أيوة للبعيد, ممكن يقولون هذولاك أو ذولاك. تولاك ما تستخدم, اللي بالتاء انقرضت. زي اللي الظاهر يبدو لي هنا, يعني زي هنا عند في موجود تاك. أعتقد إنها معرضة للانقراض. تاك كانت موجودة ذيك وتاك, يعني تاك اللي بعيدة. الآن لا, ما تستخدم, لكني أنا متأكدة أنها كانت موجودة يوما ما في لهجات في الجنوب. هذا اللي أنا لحقت على محاضرتك. يعني هي تشابه ولكن ملاحظة أنها بدأت تختفي. الأسماء الإشارة التي تبدأ بالتاء بدأت تنقرض.
لكن أنا ما سمعت الآن ما فيش فرق بين إذا تتكلم مع
مذكر ومؤنث
يكون نفس الشيء.
لا مثلا ما أظن نحن نستخدم مع المذكر بالتاء، ما أظن أن ممكن نقول تولاك، لا مع مؤنث تولاك ولا توليك ولا تي، حتى تي ما زلنا نسمعها تي يعني هذه.
اي هذه لكن الذي استقربت منه من رازحيت إن هناك فرق إذا أتكلم مع شنتي أو مع فابيو. يعني أقول مثلا الرجل، أقول لفابيو ذي هاك الرجل، أقول ليش أنتي ذي هاك الرجل. هذا هو
السفكس.
مع الفرق بالنسبة للمفرد أو جمع، مذكر أو مؤنث. هذا بالنسبة للذي نتكلم عنه، وهذا يختلف حسب الذي نتكلم معه. شفتي؟
صح. إذا التغير في السفكس، لكن عندنا مثلا لو بستخدم هذه مثلا هذه وهذا أو هذه هذا وذي تيه وذي. والله I'm confused. I have to لازم أقرأها مرة ثانية، لكنها interesting. لازم أشوفها هذا وأقارنه ونستعرض الشيء اللي الآن موجودة واللي بدأت اختفت. interesting. لكن فعلا يمكن التغير، احنا يمكن تغير في البريفكس، في الرازحي في السفكس، صح؟
بالنسبة في السفكس بالنسبة للذي يتكلم معه. الجندر الذي يتكلم معه.
أيوة.
وللجندر الذي يتكلم عنه ببريفكس. شفتي؟ ذي هيك بيت. أقول لفابيو ذي هيك البيت، أقول ليش أنتي ذي هيك البيت، أقول لكم ذي هيكم بيت. أو مجموع من النساء أقول لهن ذي هاكن البيت. يعني هذاك البيت ولا إيش المقصود؟ أيوة هذاك البيت. معقولة؟ مثل ما نقول هذاك البيت، هذاك البيت، هذاكم البيت، هذاكن البيت، هكذا. أيوة. لا هذه مش موجودة. interesting جانت clever. يبغانا ندور. I will look for that. أشوف فعلا السفكس. إن شاء الله. Thank you very much. دائما أنت تعطينا أفكار. Thank you very much جانت. والحمد لله لحقت. شكرا لكم.
Yeah, I had a look because I remember like reading something about this, and in Siwi Berber there is the agreement with the other C with the demonstrative pronouns. There is a paper from Lamin Suad about it.
Yeah.
About the suffixes and prefixes or the gender?
About the agreement with not only the object you're talking about, but also with the addressee. So
also in Beja. In Beja,
great.
there is something similar. I remember now. Yes, according to the addressee.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And it also occurs in the Quran.
Janet.
Yeah.
You mentioned to the
ممكن تسألني بالعربية؟
نعم يس. أشرتي إلى الضمير أنتم، كأنه إذا فهمت كأنك تقول هم يقولون أكم. أكم طبعا هذه ظاهرة في الرازحية وفي اللهجات القريبة منها، هو قلب التاء كاف. يقلب تاء كاف، فيعني أنتم هي أنكم بعدين أصبحت أكم.
interesting. والذي نشوفه في رازحيت إدغام النون.
صحيح.
وهذه أكم يكون بسبب إدغام النون.
عفوا. وهذه أيضا موجودة في الجانب السعودي في قبائل العبادل وبني معين أيضا بنفس يعني نفس الخاصية، أنه مثلا يقول ما عرفكو، مثلا ما عرفكو أي ما عرفته، ومثلا ما أريكو أي ما رأيته يعني، وهكذا. هم جيران على أي حال. فأنا فقط لفتت نظري هذه، وحقيقة كانت ورقتك جميلة جدا وثرية واستفدت منها كثيرا، وسبق أني قرأت لك بعض الأشياء الجميلة، فأنا سعيد جدا بهذه الورقة وسعيد بحضورك وبهذه المشاركة، وشكرا للدكتورة منيرة التي أضافت أيضا فيما يخص اسماء الإشارة وهذه العلاقات، وشكرا للجميع.
شكرا.
Are there any other questions for Janet? Okay, I don't think so. So maybe we can.
Can I just say, if you'd like a copy of the handout, and I may be able to find a copy of the actual paper that was written up, then I'm happy to just send me an email and I'll send it to you.
Great.
Could even put it up in ResearchGate. That might be easier.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Okay, so thank you, Janet. We can welcome our next speaker, Dr. Hasan Al-Faifi from King Saud University. He's going to talk about function words in Faifi dialect. So, Dr. Hasan, the floor is yours.
Oh, thank you. First of all, I'd like to share screen with, so I can't because I'm not host.
Okay, Janet.
Sorry, I've allowed sharing screen. You should be able to share screen. You should have a green button.
Okay, that's fine. I can now. Thank you very much for this opportunity, and I'd like to present my paper in Arabic, and I'll try to explain in English if it needs. أتكلم عن الموضوع الكلمات الوظيفية أو الفانكشن ووردز التي حسب المقترح المقدم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. أولا أحييكم وشكرا لهذه الفرصة، وشكرا أيضا للدكتورة جانت التي تعاونت في هذا المجال، وشكرا لفريقها أيضا فابيو وكمالا وكل الفريق الذي ربما نعرف أسماء بعضهم وربما لا نعرف. Thank you for all. أدوات التعريف في الفيفية هي ام وال. It's ام and ال. طبعا تستخدم كل واحدة لها يعني إلى حد ما يعني ال دائما تستخدم، وأنا رأيتها أيضا في ورقة الدكتورة جانت وموجودة في الرازحية وفي اللغات في المنطقة عموما في شمال اليمن وجنوب السعودية. ال تستخدم للشيء الخاص أو الأكثر تعريفا، وسنرى في الأمثلة الموجودة معنا. طبعا أرجو أن تكون الورقة مرئية أمامكم. has been seen العرض؟
نعم. يا واضح.
طيب شكرا. تستخدم ال بعد اسم الإشارة مطلقا، بعد اسم الإشارة دائما، في مثل ذربا التي هي طبعا الترجمة تكون باللون البني كما تلاحظون هنا، دائما الترجمة إلى الإنجليزية. ذربا التي هي this boy. ذربا لا يقال ذمربا مطلقا، ولا تربايا. طبعا الربا البوي والربايا البنت أو الجيرل. ذربا وتربايا، أو ذا الجهل الذي هم هؤلاء الأولاد، أو ذا استبايا الذي هم هؤلاء البنات أو الصبايا. إذن هذه لا يمكن أن نستخدم فيها ام. كذلك إذا كان مع اليوم والليلة in the same day and the same night, the day and night you are talking in. So مثلا برهت اليوم I went today morning. ما نقول برهتم يوم مطلقا إذا أنا أقصد اليوم if I mean today ونشرت الليلة which means I went tonight. إذن برهت اليوم ونشرت الليلة، هذه لازم تستخدم ما ينفع علما بأنه هي الأداة الرئيسية المستخدمة في التعريف، لكن تأتي لبعض الأشياء لابد أن تستخدم أيضا عندما تقصد نوعا محددا في وقت محدد، يعني when you mean a specific type and specific time. مثل نقول أهدني الغذيف، ترى ما يزين لي مغذيف. لاحظ معي هنا and the same word هنا بإم and we have to use this here and this here. يجب أن نستخدم هنا وإم هنا. طبعا هنا أنا أعني شيئا معينا، أقصد شيء مخصص، يعني أنا هنا أتكلم أقول مثلا أنا لا يعجبني الكلام الهراء أو يعني الكلام الذي لا يصلح أو الذي لا معنى له كما ترى، لكني يعني على وجه الخصوص أكره هذا الذي تقوله الآن، فكأنني أحدد نوعا من هذا النوع العام، نوعا خاصا من هذا النوع العام. كما نلاحظ هنا إذن هذه الكلمة نفسها بال وام. أيضا مثل لو أقول مثلا ما فيه بطاين مامزاد سماليب الزاد، طبعا لاحظ أن هنا الزاد وهنا امزاد الكلمة نفسها، لكن التعريف هنا يختلف عن هنا. لماذا؟ لأن هنا كلمة عامة، أنا أقصد الطعام أوكي، يعني الطعام ما أحد يعيبه، أنا لا أعيب الطعام، يعني I don't dispraise food as a food يعني. But this kind or now right now I don't need it. أنا لا أريد now الطعام. عندما أريد أن أخصصه أكثر أو أحدده بوقت محدد وكذا في أضعه في إطار ضيق جدا أستخدم أيضا هنا مثلا بقدها حل منوم سأنا ما بي النوم، بقدها حل منوم سأنا ما بي النوم. هنا منوم أيضا بإم لأن يتكلم عن النوم بشكل عام، هو وقت النوم أي وقت، يعني أي نوم، يعني النوم عموما هذا وقته. سأنا ما بي النوم، إنما أنا الآن في هذا اللحظة أو في هذه اللحظة لا يعني ليس أو لا أشعر بالنوم. هنا مثلا بجوع، يعني شخص ما أو طفل أو صغير أو ولد أو بنت أو كذا يقول بجوع، تقول له أمه أو أبوه يقول لا ما بك الجوع. لاحظ معي جوع عفوا سيأتي هنا يقول لا ما بك الجوع، الله يكفيك مجوع. هنا مجوع لأنه أتكلم عن الجوع hunger يعني بشكل عام، لكن هنا أتكلم عن جوع خاص بالذات وأنا أعنيه، والمجاعة التي أقصدها يعني أو الجوع الحقيقي. يقول لا يعني أنت الآن في هذه اللحظة لا تعاني من الجوع، من المجاعة، يعني من الستارفيشن، يعني نسأل الله أن يكفيك هذا بشكل عام. وهكذا مثلا هنا مثلا لو شخص ما يقول مثلا هناك زواج عند ناس يقول مثلا سمعته، يسأل يقول سمعته have you heard، سمعته قالوا بون شاحن نحال ساب يحيى، قالوا بون شاحن نحال ساب يحيى. سيرد ويقول ما معي وكد من حد، ما معي وكد اوكي سيقول ما معي وكد من حد وحشو ذي ما معي منه الوكد. الوكد هنا بآل وهنا ب أين هو؟ نعم ما معي الوكد، نعم قال هنا ما معي وكد من حد وحشو ذي ما معي منه الوكد. طبعا هنا لابد أن تأتي لأني أقصد هذا الشيء بالذات، هذا يعني أنا ليس لي الآن لا شأن لي بهذا في هذا الوقت أو في هذه المناسبة على وجه الخصوص. طبعا هذا هو يعني الشرح أو المفهوم. هذا ما يخص ال وأم أو أدوات التعريف أو يعني ال وأم التي أشرنا إليهم definite articles. فهذه هي فيما يخص النوع الثاني وهو الأفعال المساعدة أو الأكسلريز أو عندنا حرفان سابقتان ما أدري هم هؤلاء لماذا، يعني هذه تحتاج بحث حقيقة. اللي ساء وباء. واعتقد ان الدكتوره جانت انا كاني رايت بعضها في الامثله وخصوصا الباء. ساء وباء. ساء تاتي الى حد ما بمعنى انما ولكن، يعني تختلف من سياق الى سياق، لكنها تجدها ضروريه في بعض الاحيان، يعني تجد وجودها ضروريا جدا. مثلا هنا يقول ما درى، يقول هنا ما درى. سابنته تارى ونلو. He didn't know, only his daughter told him. He didn't know. So ما درى. سابنته سا هنا يعني كأنه يقول إنما أخبر بواسطة ابنته، أو إنما ابنته هي التي أخبرته، ولذلك يأتي هنا مع الأسماء، مع ابنه daughter. طيب هنا مع الأفعال مثلا يقول ما يدي يقيل سادبشو مشاقي. He couldn't return in the morning, but the servant helped him to walk slowly. طبعا ساء هنا، الساء يفترض انها red. So هنا مع الفعل. هذا مجال بحثي للدكتورة منيرة والدكتورة جانت وكل المهتمين. الساء والباء هنا يعني مواضع استخدامها ووظائفها بالضبط وكذا. أنا حقيقة وجدت لها سياقات مختلفة وتحتاج يعني عمقا أكثر من هذه الورقة المستعجلة، لكن هنا سأتي بالأمثلة يعني على وجه الخصوص. يقول هنا تأتي مع الضمائر pronouns. يعني هنا مثلا ساء هذا ألهم سالم، ساء هذا ألهم سالم. يعني he's the only one who reminded سالم. ساءها كأنه يقول هو فقط، أو إنه هو فقط الذي يعني ذكر، أو يعني ذكر سالم بهذا الأمر بأمر ما. ساءها تأبا، ساءها تأبا. she's the only one who refuses. يعني مثلا لو واحدة خطبت ولم تتزوج، وبعدين الناس لاموا عائلتها، يعني the neighbors يعني blamed her parents or family. سيقولون they will say هم سيقولون سائهاتها أبا، which means يعني it's her responsibility. سائهات إنما هي المسؤول عن هذا، سائهاتها أبا. طيب هنا سائهن أو ذا زغزغنا بها، سائهن أو ذا زغزغنا بها. In case some I mean wife loves her husband, but when she visited her parents, she came in different mood, in the opposite when she went. So they will say سائهن أو ذا زغزغنا بها, which means the ladies in her family, they trying to made her like change in her mood or her heart or feeling or something like that toward her husband. So and أيضا تأتي في سياقات أخرى in other contexts. مثلا لو أحد سأل امرأة يقول تلهمين جبرم شوقة. Do you remember someone called Jubran Shawka? She will say إيه, which means yes. إيه بعلمي أتى يربى لبي سابعني حديشة, which means yes, like here. Do you remember Jubran Shawka? Yes, I remember he came to visit my father, but I was very young. So sa, which means yes, but I don't know how to explain this, but means in that time exact, I mean when he came in that time, I was very, very young. If he came later, I maybe remember his face and his character, something like that. I can't recognize him. Okay. Now they say, for example, مَيْ تشرب. If someone asked, مَيْ تشرب, do you want to drink? مَيْ تشرب. He will say, لا, سامد أراوش ملبوة. سامد أراوش ملبوة. I mean, do you want to drink? No, I just want to wash the bowl. طيب سا هنا سا, which means no, I only want to do this. I mean what can I say? The exact thing I want to do right now is this thing, which means I wash the bowl. Okay. Again here, for example, they will say, someone will say, there's a cold. يعني بو سمطن ما هبة ما تدفى. He will say, or he will reply, بريتني سليب براد. سليب should be here. سليب سليب براد. So this is the meaning. It's so cold. Someone will tell, it's so cold. Why don't you cover up? He will say, don't worry, I just want the cold weather. So sa, I'm talking about sa here. Salib. In this, I mean, in this condition, I want to be cold. I want cold weather, something like that. So see here, for example, someone advised someone else to say, for example, خذ لك أدواء في مسدم. He will say سأسوى مع شعب. If مثلا إذا قال تناول دواء للحمى, هو سيقول العلاج لن ينفع فتناوله وتركه سواء. If someone say take medicine for fever, he will say the treatment will not work. Whether I take it or leave it, I want to get better. So sa. I mean it's in this case, in this situation, it doesn't work. So this is sa. I just gave examples. And ba. Ba تأتي أيضا في عدة سياقات لكنها أكثر تحديدا من سا. وظيفتها يعني إلى حد ما تأتي مع التوكيد والاستقبال والشرط. أداة التوكيد يعني تؤكد كأنها إن مثلا الأمثلة هنا examples هنا بالي بشرب. بالي بأشرب. Okay, بالي بشرب. I mean like surely I want to drink. I'm making I mean I'll try to make it clear that I want to I want water or I want to drink or something like that. So هنا بما ليبو. If someone gave you something, for example, food or drink or anything, so said بما ليبو. بما ليبو. You mean like surely I don't want it. And bana nahaw. And I'd like to mention something here with ba. Ba it's ba, ba alif or ba. لكن مع الضمير with the pronoun we cut the a. So it seems like bana. It should be ba ana with the speaking it goes. So bana nahaw. Baha ma'aw. Balata bithafi. بنا نحو, which means with him. بالتش بتحافي, you want just to argue or to make like stubborn or something like that. So هنا يعني إلى حد ما تأكيد like emphasizing or something like that. أيضا تأتي for future أداة الاستقبال. يقول باجابر مسوق غدوة بره معه ألا بدتشه. جابر مسوق غدوة بره معه ألا بدتشه means أو يعني جابر سيذهب للسوق صباح الغد, اذهب معه إن شئت. جابر will go to the market tomorrow morning. Go with him if you want. هنا مع جاءت طبعا مع الاسم لكن in the future maybe after 1 minute or maybe 1 year or something. But look. Now its function is to mention or to indicate to the future. So با جابر مسوق غدوة. مع الشرط conditional مثل هنا يعني با أبي حاردن لو يدري. با أبي حاردن لو يدري. My father will get angry if he knows or if he knew. Look با أبي حاردن لو يدري. which means if he, I mean, later, not now, until now, he doesn't know. But if that happened, he will be angry. بهزاين المزرع الوقعا مطرا. بهزاين المزرع الوقعا مطرا. Again, in future, this is the meaning. Here, the seeds will grow well if it rains. بها مقتلعا بيته ألمع خاعا. He will keep his house if he's wise. I mean, if he has, if he's good one. In the future again, and هنا بها آكلة ألا جاعا. بها آكلة ألا جاعا. She will eat if she's hungry. So this is in future. هذه معانيها بالعربي طبعا. أبي سيغضب لو علم. أبي حرق لو يدري. أبي سيغضب لو علم. بها زاين المزرع الوقع مطرا. الزرع سينمو جيدا إذا هطلت المطر. بها مقتلع بيته ألمع خاعا. سيستبقي بيته إن كان حكيما أو عاقلا. بها آكلة ألا جاعا. ستأكل إذا جاعت. طبعا لاحظ معي هنا كلها تأخذ للسين. السين سيغضب أو سوف. well. زين. will. هنا أيضا تأتي مع الفعل المنفي. يعني غالبا باء أو دائما في الفيفية على وجه الخصوص لا تأتي مع الفعل إلا إذا كان منفيا. لكنها تأتي عند بعض القبائل في منطقة خولان، يعني قريب من فيفا أو كذا، في مثلا بني منبه وربما رازح أعتقد. الدكتورة جانت تعرف. تأتي مع الفعل عندهم. يعني يقول مثلا بايعطي الله أو بايدي الله، يعني الله سيرزق. هنا لا تأتي في الفيفية إلا مع الفعل إذا كان مسبوقا بأداة نفي. مثل هنا بما تعشيت البارح. بما تعشيت البارح. يعني مثلا لم أتناول العشاء ليلة البارحة. I didn't have dinner last night. هنا مثلا يقول بما حين في حدن. بما حين في حدن. It means he doesn't care about anyone. He doesn't care about anyone. يعني هو لا يهتم بأحد. لا ترقب يعابرونشه. بما يعشون هرن. لا ترقب يعابرونشه. بما يعشون هرن means they are mean. They aren't generous. يعني لا تنتظر ليلحوا عليك في الاستضافة. إنهم لا يعشون قطا أو هرا. Don't wait for them to urge you to be guests. They don't feed cat from dinner. طيب. هنا لاحظ معي باء تأتي مع كلها. هنا مسبوقة. هنا ما تعشيت مع الفعل الماضي. هنا ما حين أيضا مع الفعل الماضي. هنا ما يعشون هنا مع الفعل المضارع، لكنها كلها مسبوقة بأداة نفي وبما على وجه الخصوص. هناك أمثلة أخرى حقيقة من الصعب تصنيفها الآن. مثلا بناءات. بمناءات. بها مجودنه أو بها مجودو. بها مجودن. بها مجودنه. بها إيش بها هادن يلقى. This is the Okay, I'll talk about them. هنا مثلا قد يجتمعان ساء وباء. ساء وباء قد يجتمعان في سياق واحد. مثلا هنا سابهاي ماحط. سابهاي ماحط. إنه يحاول فقط الاستفزاز. سابهاي ماحط. He's just trying to provoke. إذن عندنا ساء وعندنا باء. هذه باء قلنا أنها تأتي مع الضمير مقطوعة الألف. باء باختصارا. طيب هذا ساء وباء انتهينا منها. أسماء الإشارة أو Demonstratives. أسماء الإشارة وهي التي يعني إلى حد ما كان المفروض أن الدكتور عبد الله الفيفي من جامعة الملك عبد العزيز يتكلم عنها، لكنه اعتذر، فأنا يعني أشرت إليها لكي لا نهملها فقط، لأنها مهمة جدا في الفانكشن ووردز أو في الكلمات الوظيفية. أسماء الإشارة كما أشارت الدكتورة جانت قبل قليل في الرازحية ليست بعيدة عنها، وإن كان هناك اختلافات. طبعا the which means this, they, this again, but with more emphasis, like I mean something here. I need you to focus on it. They, ذاله, ذاله. To indicate to it means that, but not any that. Look here in the I think left side. Sorry, that, but many that's. So that here, it means dhala. Dhala means something quite far from me as a speaker, but the it's near around the listener. For male, dhala, which means here in the pink one, tala, similar to dhala. This is for female, and this is for male, so it's similar. Dhala, sorry, here, dhala. Dhala, the object near you. I mean, I'm talking for about, to someone. So dhala. And dal hala, dal al hala, dal al hala, something behind that object. So it's quite complicated. For example, I don't know if you can you see me?
Yeah, of course. Sorry, Dr. Faifi, I can give you a couple of minutes more, but because we are a bit late, so if you can get to the conclusions, I will really appreciate that. Sorry for interrupting you.
Yes, that's fine, thank you. So anyway, as I said, dal hala, something behind you, and that. So dal al hala, something behind you, and dal hala, something behind that behind you. So they, which means something far from both sides, speaker and listener. And ti and tayya, tala, talhala, utalhala, utayli, the similar to like only just t instead of they. So أو ذي أو ذي أو ذاله أو ذيلي for plural. So okay, chi means كذا أو هكذا means like this. جود chi means do like this. Chala means do like that thing around you or near you. And cheli do like what the thing far from both of us. Hini, which means the place, I'm indicating to place near me, and hawla near the listener, and hinayli is far from both of us, and hinal hala is farther than from both sides. So al-adad, we have was'an and basilin and was'an, was'an, was'ah, which means many and a lot. Basilin, again, the same, basilin, ubaslah, ubusulin. Adna galil, which means a little. Adinna, which means very little, and itinna, which means so little, almost nothing. The prepositions, we use wayla. Wayla means ila, and alba, something can be instead of an, like magdi sami'at bu, I didn't hear about him. Hacha, which means hatta, hacha, which means hatta or to. Al-dhama'ir ana, which means I. Anhin, which means we. Anta, which means you for male. Anti, you for female. Antum, for you for plural male. Antenna, or antenna, is antenna, it's between female, and aha, he, and aha, she, and ahem, they, and ahunna, they for female. I don't know if
Hasan, sorry, would you be able to sum up so that we've got a few minutes for questions and discussion?
Okay, I've finished anyway. I've almost finished. Yes, that's all. I think if you want, thank you very much for listening, and I hope you got something new. If you have any questions or anything or any notes, so I welcome it.
Yeah, thank you so much for your presentation. I know it's always hard to try to summarize so much in so little time, but yeah, it was a very rich presentation. So thank you for that.